Apex changed up the weapon meta a lot in Season 14, and it's been fairly refreshing to see all of the different weapons that are now viable. So as we get into this tier list, just know that at the very least, every gun is decent. It's just that some are going to be more versatile and better than others. So let's start off with D tier. First on the list is the P2020. Now this is the joke of Apex. The utility on this weapon is borderline non-existent, and even with hammer points, it's still not a viable option to generally run all game. I know some of you are ready to type a comment saying that you use the P2020 and that you shred with it. Let me stop you right there. You don't, okay? The P2020 is only decent for an off-drop scramble fight when your opponent has their fists or some gun where they're missing every shot with. But that's as far as this gun goes. Now, second on the list in D tier is gonna be the L-Star. This gun is terrible right now. Back in Season 10, it was severely overpowered, but with a series of nerfs and them altering the LMGs as a whole, this gun is just no longer viable. I know they'll never do this, but it would be great if they just replaced this gun with one of the other guns that they're working on. The L-Star has always had an odd fit in Apex, and I don't really know how they fix it. Moving on to C tier, and boy am I gonna get roasted here. First on the list is the Devotion. Now right now the Devo is only available in the Replicator, at least for this first split, and the reason I'm putting this gun in C tier is because of the need to have all of these attachments on it. The gun needs about all 5 attachments, including the turbocharger, in my opinion, to be a good gun. But even then, I'm still not a big fan of this gun. It has a lot of recoil, and it's really not that good past 40 plus meters. Also, back in Season 13, they nerfed the handling of this gun and the other LMGs to make it feel more like an LMG in real life, I guess. So it's a very slow moving gun, and I often find it just not worth it, especially when you compare it to some of the other LMGs or even some of the ARs. Second in C tier is going to be the RE45. This automatic light pistol is also only available through the Replicator this season, and it's coming equipped with hammer points. Now, putting a gun like this in the crafter seems a little strange to me, because most wouldn't craft this gun and then run it all game. They typically would only use this gun if it's what they found off drop, and if they found hammers too, well, good. I also have to say, I really think this gun needs that barrel stabilizer that it used to have over these new laser sights. The barrel stabilizer helped tone down the recoil, but the laser sight only does that when you're up close and hip firing, so I'm not a big fan of it this season. It's still a strong gun, but I'm leaving it in C tier. Third in C tier is going to be the Sentinel. This bolt action sniper rifle is honestly a difficult weapon to master, but it remains to be one of the most satisfying guns to be proficient with. The ability to charge your shots with shield cells makes this sniper as close to a Kraber without actually finding one. However, the two downsides I've found are the low mag capacity and the duration in between each shot, due to it being a bolt action sniper. The base Sentinel only has 4 shots, and I think it would do much better if it had at least 5. They also implemented the Deadeye's tempo into this gun, so you no longer need the hop up, but that's only a really small buff for it. I don't think it's where the gun needed help. Alright, moving on to the decent weapons, B tier. First is the Triple Take. The Energy Marksman rifle is still a fairly strong pick for Season 14. This weapon can be a pretty good rifle and even flex as a shotgun if you need it to. It's certainly not in its prime like it was a couple seasons ago, but it can definitely get the job done. Second in B tier is going to be the Alternator. This twin barrel SMG is kind of slept on and could honestly be a viable gun to run all game. Its recoil is manageable and friendly to new players, and its damage seems to stack up quickly. However, the real downside to this gun is the slow fire rate, particularly when you go up against a car or any other gun that can do more damage per second. Third in B tier is the Mozambique. This is the most slept on shotgun in all of Apex. Now, I used to say it was better than the EVA 8, but no longer is that true. I guess it does rank as the worst shotgun, but it's still pretty good. I love how low-key this gun is, and sometimes I'll run it all game even without hammer points. If you get a purple shotgun bolt on this thing, its fire rate and damage per second is really strong. The only downside I found is the fact that it's a pistol, so it has a slow bullet speed, and dealing damage to an opponent that has a good strafe and a PK or wingman up close, it's going to be a hard fight to win, especially if they're hitting some of their shots. This is really when the gun starts to get outclassed, and it's kind of similar to what happens with the Alternator. Next up is the Hemlock. If I had to define this gun in one word, I would say inconsistent. There's games where your burst hits for 60 plus, and then there's times where it hits for 15, 5 separate times. I think burst guns are a strange concept as they either are really OP or just kinda meh. If anyone remembers what this gun was like in Season 7 when it was very strong, then you probably know what I mean. I do have to say I love the hip fire on this gun, however. Alright, last in B tier is... and this is gonna anger a lot of you, but yeah, the 30-30 is B tier. I'll take the G7 Scout over this gun 10 out of 10 times. I know, the skull piercer makes it stronger, and I'm glad they built in the dual shell to this gun. However, the bullet drop and travel speed is what holds this gun back in my eyes. And maybe it's better on mouse and keyboard, or maybe I just suck with it. But B tier doesn't mean terrible by any means. It's still very viable. I just think the Scout is better. Alright, moving on to some of the better weapons, A tier. First up is the Prowler. Now last season, I kind of overlooked how good this gun can actually be. Towards the end of the season, I started running it more and more. It still can have some weird moments where recoil feels strange or the burst damage just doesn't really add up. But when you get up close and personal, this gun can be lethal. On top of that, the addition of laser sights this season, which I must say fits the Prowler better than any other SMG. With that, I gotta put the Prowler in A tier this season. I would use this gun as a secondary instead of having a shotgun. It would not be my primary weapon though. Second in A tier is the Havoc. Now if you're skilled and know when to pre-fire this gun, it can be very good, but it does take practice to get used to this gun without the turbocharger, because then it can't really be a reactive weapon. Your opponent will always get the draw on you if you don't have a turbo and you're not pre-firing them. It does more damage than the Volt, yes, but the Volt is just generally easier to use. Also, without attachments on the Havoc, it does tend to have a lot of recoil. Still a very, very strong gun, and be careful if you get up close and personal with this thing. Third in A tier is the Longbow. Now this is one of the best sniper rifles in the game. It hits hard, has very little bullet drop, and it has the fastest fire rate in its class. The addition of the skull piercer makes this weapon even scarier to go up against, with a 35% increase in headshot damage. All it really takes is one headshot to turn the fight in your favor. It's also fairly good at hip firing up close if you find yourself in a pinch. Fourth in A tier is the R99. Now despite this gun not feeling as strong as it used to, it's still a viable option in Season 14. The R99 wasn't really nerfed recently, it's just the emergence of other weapons have come to overshadow it, sort of. I've still been using this gun a ton though, and it's definitely A tier. You can also use it as a placeholder for guns like R301, G7 Scout, and even the car if that's your end goal. Once you learn to master this gun's recoil, it feels a lot better, but I remember when I was new, I hated this gun. Last but not least in A tier is the Spitfire. We saw two changes to this gun in Season 14. First thing they did was make it take light ammo instead of heavy. I haven't really noticed a big difference with this besides just changing around that muscle memory for inventory management. The second thing they did is they made the recoil slightly more difficult to control. And with that, I gotta say it's now A tier instead of S tier. This is still the best LMG on floor loot hands down, but it now is starting to see some competition with all of these other weapons that are now in S tier. So with that said, let's get on to the best weapons for Season 14. We gotta start off the list with the only hit scan gun in the game, the charge rifle. This is a gun you enjoy early on in your Apex career and then grow to despise it whenever you go up against it. It's just too powerful in these long-range engagements that makes it difficult to fight against. It also nearly has 100% hipfire accuracy, so it's not too bad of a gun to have off drop. Second on the list in S tier is the G7 Scout. Now that the Scout is back on the ground loot, you're going to be seeing a lot of it in Season 14. This marksman rifle has a rapid fire rate with punishing damage. I know a lot of players enjoy the double tap hop up because it can 2x the damage. However, I find this gun better in single fire because of the better pacing of shots, and the recoil doesn't seem to kick up as much. This is just a personal preference, and regardless of how you use it, I'm sure you'll find out how good it truly is if you don't already know. Third is the Bocek bow. This has gone into the care package this season, and it's the same gun as it was when it got released back in Season 9. Besides the fact that the ammo isn't recyclable now, the bow is definitely S tier because of its damage, fire rate, and lack of audio when getting hit by it. Sometimes people don't even know where they just got hit from, and then one or two more shots and they're knocked. It also comes equipped with a 3x, which I think is optimal for the bow. Next up is the Rampage. Now this also went into the care package this season, and I think it immediately has to be S tier. It comes with a thermite to charge it, and if this gun is charged up, well, you better look out. You'll probably be dead before you know it. Now, I was debating putting this gun in A tier due to its strange recoil pattern and slow fire rate when it's not charged up, but I don't think so. I know it's got to be S tier. It's not my favorite gun by any means, but that doesn't change the fact that it's S tier. Next, we have the Kraber. Now, I know a lot of people got irritated with the nerfs it received last season, but I have to say, this gun can completely shift a fight with one shot. It is not as good as it previously was, that's true, but I would not be leaving this gun around or saying it's anything below S tier. Also going into S tier is the Mastiff. Now, it's obviously in the care package for a reason, although they did make it a bit weaker this season with some changes they did to it. That really doesn't matter because it's still very OP and should always be utilized if your squad comes across one. The damage output coupled with its fire rate make this weapon probably the scariest close range gun to go up against. Next up is the R301. This gun is probably the most well-rounded weapon in the game due to its controllable recoil and versatility in close range and medium to long range engagements. I remember back in the day, it took me a while to like this gun with the 3x scope on it, but now that's my go-to if I'm using it. I know a lot of you guys already know that, but if anybody's been sleeping on the R301 with a 3x, you gotta try it out again. You guys still there? All right, we got a few more guns that are just really, really good this season. One is the Flatline. This is a very strong option for your primary weapon. Nothing's really changed with it despite the all-around nerf to AR hip firing. It seems to have minimal effect on the Flatline, and it's still an upper echelon pick. Once you can control the recoil on this gun, you'll find it equally as rewarding as the R301. It's definitely going to be harder to control at those longer distances, but its damage per shot is higher. Next up, we have the Volt. Now, with the return of the Volt onto ground loot, it's re-emerged as a top pick in Season 14. I know a lot of players enjoy this gun because of its fast fire rate, high DPS, and its fairly easy recoil pattern. Now, I am glad they finally took this gun out of the care package because it kind of felt wrong going in there in the first place, but what I can tell you is I've already died a ton to this gun. Watch out for the headshot multiplier on this as it won't take long at all to knock someone. Another amazing pick for S tier is the Peacekeeper. Now, I know a lot of newer players avoid this gun because of its inconsistencies with its damage. However, it's still one of the best secondary guns to use in all of Apex. And the more you improve with it, the less you'll hit for 9 damage. It also has one of the most satisfying animations and sounds in the game. I can't say enough good things about the Peacekeeper. It feels like it's finally in a really good spot with how they changed things up last season. But with that said, it does have some competition in its class with the buff to the EVA 8. The EVA 8 got a ton of changes this season. They made shotgun bolts shoot faster, they tightened the bullet spread, and added standard stocks to assist with handling and reloading on this weapon. And this gun feels better than it did a few seasons ago when it was insanely OP. We'll just have to wait and see how this season plays out. I'm not sure if it's going to be like EVA season again, or if it'll just be competing with the Peacekeeper. Time will tell, but you don't want to sleep on the EVA 8 this season. All right, second to last in S tier is the car. Now that the car is back on floor loot, you're going to be seeing a lot more of it. I was interested to see how this gun would turn out with the removal of barrel stabilizers and the fact that it can't take laser sights. But I can say after using it a good bit, it's still very strong. I think it will take a little bit more skill to use than previous seasons because of its abrupt recoil and fast fire rate, but that's a good thing in my eyes. In my opinion, it got to be a little annoying last season before it went into the crafter. The one clip potential with this gun is extremely high. All right, the last one in S tier is the Wingman. I've seen so many comments about this, and a lot of people have actually said this to me in game as well, that they are really angry about the sniper ammo changes. To me, it really plays a minimal role. I mean, sure, you got to remember, hey, this doesn't take heavy mags anymore, but once you get beyond that, it has a skull piercer available this season and the boosted loader. The gun hasn't been changed, except maybe you get to carry a little bit less ammo. I mean, I don't know. This gun is just insane. It's kind of annoying, honestly, dying to a 3-tap with a Wingman, but we'll see what they do. I don't think that Skull Piercer was necessary to put back on it. I think that's just going to make people more angry throughout the season. I don't know. You guys can let me know in the comments, though. If you guys are interested in the best legend tier list, well, I suggest you check out this video next. Thanks for watching. Peace.